Hey guys, good practice today.
Man, I'm hungry.
Me too. I know just the spot. Go long. No, way longer.
Everyone knows the best route for good times and great food takes you to Whiskey River in Ankeny. Lunch, late nights, or just catching up with friends? This is your spot.
About time you guys got here.
Well, you did have a head start.
In the heart of the district, Whiskey River.
A fuel choice that even rivals can agree on? Now that's worth the hype. Cheaper, cleaner, and homegrown. Pump it up with unleaded 88.
We recommend listening to the CW pod with a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Grown, distilled, well-rested, and bottled in Erling, Iowa. Now from the Channel Seed Studios, this is the CW pod, fueled by Steeple Ridge.
Hello, welcome to first game week, CW pod, here on Iowa Everywhere. And I'm actually really excited for this one. I've been dreading game week. Andrew Downs, who's joining me here from the Channel Seed Studios, I've been dreading it, but I'm like ready now. It's weird. It like a switch. It wasn't that I was dreading the football.
Right.
It was all the stuff that everybody's been seeing.
There's a lot to get ready for, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
sales and
right.
like just the whole organization of the next.
You've had a lot going on.
Oh, yeah. And then I have Cyclone Fanatic too, is the thing. But no, and now we've kind of like the cat's out of the bag with y'all, and couldn't be more excited, especially to have you.
Yeah, man.
I told you this before, but you put up with more shit at the old place than anybody, and you made our lives easier, and you shielded us from crap. I know so much. So
I tried. I tried.
Yeah. Well, until the end for me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's another story for another day. But no, I'm so glad to have you sitting here, and we obviously Murph and Andy coming back as well. How have you enjoyed the last few days?
It's been so cool.
Because we had to hold your deal off.
Yeah, so that was one of the harder things is like, first of all, I've known about this obviously for a little while and I've been excited about it. But then, yeah, the week basically where Murph and Andy gets announced and I have to kind of keep quiet about it. And so like on social media, it's pretty easy. You know, just like comments, kind of not respond. But then I had a lot of people texting me, like friends.
Yeah.
You know, people. And
are you coming?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And so I just kind of no commented those people a lot of the time. Obviously, a handful of people knew, but yeah, then this week to have the announcement come out and my show with Hassel come out and all that, it's been really, really cool. This has been fun.
It's been fun. A lot of work. I mean, we did a lot of the video production, John Liebel, and then the guys at Luminary and Van Winkle and
awesome.
Aiden, they've been grinding on this stuff for weeks now, months.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
You know, it was when really it all happened when Hassel flew back, and we had to like lie about why he was here.
Exactly.
And then we've been doing these video productions ever since that. But it's rewarding to have you all here.
Yeah,
Kinda
man.
like having the band all back.
It really
together.
is. You know, it's funny. Like Matt Peralt, who was on KXNO with us years and years ago. I don't know. Did you and him ever? I guess
well,
not.
We worked
because
together. We worked together a lot. Never
never technically host
no,
at the same time.
So if you remember back in those days, Ken lived in Vegas like half the time.
Yep, I remember that.
So I don't remember what the arrangement was, but when Ken was gone, I was Ken's fill-in. I was always the fill-in.
You
guy.
were.
I was Miller and Daces.
Yep.
I was Ken, and and then I did it for Keith and Andy a lot.
That's why you were the first guy we called when we needed a new host.
Yeah. Well, because I had all the reps.
Absolutely.
And
but Peralt was like, man, it's cool. Like you guys are really getting the band back together. Like
we really
feels
are.
like KXNO circa 10 years ago. It's like hell yeah.
Yeah. No, it does. It feels good, and I'm excited. Real quick, I want to thank Steeple Ridge Bourbon, our sponsor. It is 10:30 when we're recording this. Otherwise, I would be drinking some. I won't lie. I did on Friday night. I was fried.
Nice.
I poured open some of that sweet mash rye.
It's incredible. You gave me a bottle last time I was here. It's awesome.
They're really good.
They really, really
so
are.
they're actually going to be out at the big Channel Seed concert on Wednesday night.
Blackhawk,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Steeple Ridge is going to have a booth out there.
Oh, cool.
And going to be handing out some whiskey to the great farmers who are all in town.
Nice.
So that's going to be a hell of a deal. Like I'm taking my camper because I just know my wife is like, why don't you just drive back? I'm like, Ashley, you don't want me driving back.
No.
Like I'm not even going to put myself in that situation. I'm going to roll into the camper, roll out. I am probably going to look like crap on Two Guys Thursday morning. Because I know what Dustin Fouch and Joe Hora and Chad Winterbore have in store for me, and it's gonna be a late night.
That'll be good. That'll be fun.
No, I love it. You know, we're gonna be out in rural Iowa, and there's Blackhawks bringing this big stage, and they've got it's something like 400 or 500 farmers are coming into this town.
Nice.
They've got all the beer that a human being, because they're all there for the farm progress. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Back in your
Yep.
iHeart days, like that's a huge deal for WHO.
And now in the merch world, I've done a bunch of
Oh,
stuff. Yeah, and it was
cool.
all like, hey, it's got to be done. And AKC, we do a lot of big ag company marketing, and so yeah, like this is a big week for people all over the state, not just farmers.
Well, it's fascinating to me. I was telling Channel this is 10 years ago, ag wouldn't touch me with like Cyclone Fanatic because like the people making decisions could not grasp what we were doing.
Right.
They just
It
couldn't.
was so foreign.
They weren't against us.
No.
They just didn't understand that that's a good. Well, now the majority of these farmers are like the sons and daughters of the old farmer.
Yeah.
And they're in their 30s and 40s, and these combines are just loaded up with, CarPlay.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
This is how they take it in now.
Right, and they have hours upon hours of time out in the field.
Yeah, the GPS is running the tractor for them half the time.
Yeah, right.
They're watching Netflix.
Yeah, and so that they need content, and so as you said, like the younger generation comes in, they kind of understand this a little bit more. Also, like I've noticed this even in the last week as people are learning about Murph and Andy, and you have a few people who are like, hey, what radio station are you guys on? It's like, hey, that's not what it is. As soon as it's like the stepping stone is not very high, like the barrier for entry is not very high. It feels big for people who have never done it before, but like to get my dad to download a podcast, it's showing him once, and it's like, oh, it's that easy. Okay, cool.
I've used this example a million times, but when COVID hit, my dad he had no idea. And then all of a sudden I showed him what Netflix was.
Yeah.
And he's binge watching things like a week later.
Exactly.
Now he's cut the cord.
Yeah. Now they're telling you about shows and things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you're right.
You really check out Paramount Plus. Like,
it's a transition, but it's really not like and I'll use myself as an example. I was for a guy our age, I was super late to cut the cord.
Yeah.
Ross and I used to talk about this. This is like a theme of the show. Ross was like, "You're an idiot." And like, the problem was I never had good enough internet. Well, now that's kind of like taking care of itself.
Yes.
In most spots, even if you're in a deep rural area, you can get Starlink. There's different ways to be able to do it. The whole like concept of having a satellite dish to me is so cumbersome now.
Yes.
Like I look back on it.
Exactly.
So like the thing I've learned, and I guess my daughters probably have helped me with this, but the algorithm with YouTube is so good. I could live off of just YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not live stuff, but like the way it serves up relevant content to me.
Yes.
Like I'm always getting like country music, dirt track racing, college sports, UFOs.
It gives you exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I do it a lot when I'm like doing dishes or something. I'll just put on a YouTube video and like prop it up behind the sink. And yeah, exactly. Like one of my like little guilty pleasures is I like watching like reactions to music. So like people who had never heard this Eminem song, and then they like react to it for whatever reason.
Cool.
If it's a song that I really like or a musician that I really like somebody hearing Bohemian Rhapsody for the first time, it just blows their mind. And they're like, what is this? And it's just kind of fun to watch like a 25-year-old react to something that I know super well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's feeding me that stuff constantly.
You just gave me an idea. When I started at KXNO, we wanted to do this deal where I watch these classic movies.
Yeah, we even had a
should do
name
some
for
of
it.
those.
It was like Chris watches.
Chris goes to the movies.
Chris goes to the movie. It was something like that.
We should totally do that now.
Man, and that's one of like the coolest things about Iowa Everywhere, what you guys have built, and then us coming over. And like one of the things I'm most excited about. Obviously, I'm super excited to work with Murph and Andy again, and to like have this platform and all of those things. But like the Hassel, the Instant Iowa show that Hassel and I are going to do immediately after Iowa football games. We're going to get on and react to it live. I'm super excited about that, but that like came about very quickly.
It did.
It was literally Hassel being like, "Hey, is this something you'd like to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Chris, is that cool? And you're like, "Absolutely."
We had a graphic.
Let's build it out.
Yeah.
And we've talked for a long time. I mean, we put out a video this morning about kind of how to access all of Iowa Everywhere content, and it's me, Van Winkle, and Aiden. And I've talked for years on KXNO. I always wanted to do some sort of like a producer show.
Yes.
But the problem on radio is you have to carve out that time. You have to justify it with sales, right, and all this stuff. Here we can just kind of throw things out, and if it works, it works. If we like it, we like it. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
And sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely.
The amount of bad ideas I have with Cyclone Fanatic over the years that we don't do anymore.
Yeah. But things like that, where it's like you could just come up with an idea. Hey, Chris goes to the movies. Let's try that. Or I know Murph and Andy. We started that sports movie pod over on iHeart, and I know that's
I've
something
heard
we've
rumblings
always,
that could be coming back.
Something we've always wanted to kind of revive and do on a different level and own. And so like, just the ability to have that creative outlet and kind of do different things, I think is going to be really fun.
Well, we just don't have any shackles. Is the key, and not that anybody. We were talking to KXNO because that's our past, but anywhere else, it's like they want to do cool stuff.
Yeah,
and they often do, but there's always a process.
Yes,
and our process is just so much more, flexible.
Exactly,
because of the way it's built out, and And we'll do stuff that won't work.
Right.
Like, we're not going to hit a home run every time we step up to the plate. But the good thing is we have so much data that the audience, you guys tell us what's working.
Yes.
When we started Two Guys, like it was like a rocket ship as far as listeners go. And you guys told us you like this.
Yeah.
Right. And we've done other shows where it's like, no, we probably should make some changes. We basically we listen to the data. And you can also tell it's like if we're doing a show and it, we're getting a lot of comments and social media, like then that's probably a pretty good sign. You don't want to obsess over it because there's like this show, for instance, gets great numbers. It doesn't have nearly as much interaction as like a Two Guys does, which makes sense.
Different kind of show.
Absolutely. This is not made to be this, me and Hassel talking about placentas and, like that. You're right. Like this is a different deal. I don't even know what this show is, but it's still here,
and you can feel that, like you feel that feedback.
You know if it works or not.
Exactly, absolutely. And so that's one of the things I'm super excited about being here. And then man, like when I left KXNO last November, I legitimately did it with the understand. I had to go into it with the understanding. How's Diffie doing?
He's good.
Good.
The puppy's in the studio.
It's a cute dog.
You could probably hear him mauling down
it's
a
cute
bone.
Dog.
Yeah.
I left, and I had to do this for my own sanity. I left with the understanding that like I was probably never going to do anything like this again.
Yeah.
And you and I had talked about things, and Murph and Andy and I had spent years talking like, is this something we could do on our own? But like I didn't want to rely on any of that because I wasn't leaving for something else. People still don't believe that. I didn't have a job when I left. I mean, the first time I came on this podcast after I left, I was unemployed.
It was one of your free agent pitches to everybody. Yeah,
absolutely.
you were literally doing
it. It was
that.
like, please call me if you have a job to give me because I don't have one. But I had to go into that, like, again, fully understanding that I may never do anything like this again. I probably will never work with those guys again. And I had to like be comfortable with that. And so then, a couple of months ago when like this started to move and it started to be like, oh man, this could actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those like pinch me moments. And it is even right now. Like, this is incredible that if you had told me when I left that I'd have a job I'd love, I'd be making more money than I was in radio with way more flexibility and just generally like happier, less anxious than I was when I was in radio. And then I'd still get to do Murph and Andy and still get to be a part of things like this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like dream come true type stuff for me.
Well, and I was going to give a shout out to your full-time job too, because it's like, they don't have to do that.
No.
And we're going to have a great partnership with them. We're gonna be doing a lot of
Yeah,
our
we'll
merch.
be launching a merch store.
Yeah.
I got the.
I was wearing my hat around today, but I thought I'd have
Yeah,
it
we
be a.
do the.
There we
the-
go. I love the Iowa Everywhere rope hat. Murph can shit on it all he wants, but he's clearly showing his age.
He's
These
just an
rope
old man,
hats, I'm
right?
not kidding you. We just put the Cyclone Fanatic ones
Yeah,
you made me
yeah.
up on the store, and every time I wear that hat, I get 4 or 5 comments.
It's-
Every time.
But you're exactly right. So like my boss over at AKC Marketing, when I approached him, well, really it was way back in like February. Andy had asked me to come on, Murph and Andy, and do the show. Murph was gone or something, and even then I was kind of like, so I went in. I was like, "Are you okay if I take like 3 hours out of my day?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely. You know, I know you love that stuff. You know, plug the the business, but yeah, for sure." And my job by nature isn't a job where I sit at a desk for 8 hours a day, right? I'm not punching a clock. And so when I approached him about this, and I was like, first of all, it's something I really want to do. I think it'll be good for us. I think it'll be good for me. Like immediately it was like, hell yeah, absolutely. You should do that. Do whatever you need to do. They trust me. Again, like culture is such an overused word, but it's something you guys have built here at Iowa Everywhere. It's something they really focus on at AKC Marketing. It's one of the big reasons I took that job was because of the culture that they were fostering in that place. And it's because of things like this. They want me to be happy. They trust that I'm going to do my job, even if I have to take a few hours out of my day to do this on the side. And so, yeah, huge shout out to them and everybody there has been so cool about it. And yeah, man, it really is like pinch me stuff that I get to do this and be a part of this. And I can't wait to relaunch Murph and Andy. Yeah. It's going to be different.
Monday.
We're going to, we're going to have to feel it out a little bit. Like it's kind of like restarting the show.
It is.
Because it's a different animal. It's not 2 hours every day. You don't have to fill time the way we did. And we didn't have a lot of time where we were just trying to kill time on that show.
No.
But you still have 2 hours a day that you have to do. And so we're going to have to kind of find our way a little bit. We're going to need a little bit of leeway from listeners, I think, as we, like you said, we throw things. I have a graveyard of audio opens for segments that we tried over the years that didn't work for one reason or the other. There will be things like that on the show. It's not going to just hit the ground at full speed. But it's going to be so much fun. I had done the show a handful of times with either Murph or Andy since I had left, and it was kind of co-hosting. The very last week of their radio show, I went in and shout out to Lucas Strain, who was the producer, because he was super cool about this. We basically just pretended like I had never left, and we never acknowledged that I was there. I wasn't actually behind the board. I was in studio with the guys, but we pretended like I was just producing the show. And the amount of feedback I got from that day of just people saying, man, it's good to hear the three of you together again. Like, that just felt like old times. And again, that's nothing against Lucas or what the show was after I left, but there's a chemistry that the three of us have that I'm so excited to just kind of get back into. And yeah, man, yeah, Monday we go.
We will be in Perry.
Yeah.
Because Channel 13's on their RV TV. So, and that's another thing that I love about what we do is that, like, we're going on Labor Day.
Yeah, right.
We're going to react
Absolutely.
to these games.
Yes.
I respect Labor Day. I hope you all have a great day off. It's not a day off for us.
It was always such a, you and Hassel mentioned it on Two Guys earlier this week where,
I hated that.
yeah, I mean, you have that first week, you have you finally have a game to talk about. You finally have, and in an off season, especially like this, and the way Iowa's off seasons have been the last few years, where you just have no idea what you're going to see. You finally have something to talk about. And then, by the way, you're going into the biggest game of the year. You have Cyhawk week. You only have 5 days to talk about it, and you just aren't on the air.
And Friday
on
doesn't really count.
No. Yeah, exactly.
In my opinion, like when I was doing 4 to 7, I always felt like the Friday show was a throwaway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Because I probably shouldn't have looked at it that way, but we had talked about everything for one.
Yes.
And two, by 5 o'clock on a Friday, people are checked out.
Yeah.
Like at least that was the vibe. And I see our traffic numbers with Cyclone Fanatic and Iowa Everywhere. Like we have a pretty staunch rule. Like we're not putting anything out on Fridays. One, because I want our staff to take some time off.
Yeah.
Right. Because we work weekends.
Right.
And like for me, Sunday is perhaps the busiest work day of the week for me.
For sure.
Because you're reacting and then you're also prepping for the next week. And like you know, you're back on top of the roller coaster and then you're going to go back all the way down. But like the traffic on Fridays is just next to nothing.
Right.
Really. Like
And so,
it
exactly.
totally drops off.
Yes.
Like your Tuesday traffic is oftentimes 2 to 3 times more than what you get on a Friday.
And during the week, there's just so much coming every day. And so
I'm guessing
like,
radio's a little bit different because
Yeah.
people are still driving home and stuff like that.
yeah, but even then, like if you go out onto 235 at 4 o'clock on Friday, it's way busier than it was at 4 o'clock on Thursday, and at 5:30 the traffic is basically done. Like
Good
people
point.
get out of work early. They find ways to start Friday a little early.
Yeah, especially during football season with home games. For
Yeah.
both.
And so it's like if on Tuesday you're trying to react to the game, and you also got press conferences, and you're starting to look at the next week, and you've got depth charts and things, and so it's it just always got so jumbled in that. And again, that's the biggest week, and Murph and Andy are out on RVTV, and I mean, so yeah, I'm excited to be there on Monday to actually have a game to talk about, a couple of games to talk about, something to actually react to. I think it's perfect.
Well, I want to talk about this show with you and Hassel, and I also want to make a few clarifications for people who may be wondering. So we're doing Instant Iowa with Downs and Hassel, and we'll talk about that show. We are not doing one for Iowa State. We will have Cyclone Sunday with Ben Bruns, who is a phenomenal football mind.
That's a great show. I listen to that every week.
Well, and he gives such a different insight than
Yes,
anybody else.
exactly.
The reason is like, let's all be critical thinkers here. This is a sister company of Cyclone Fanatic.
Right.
Everybody knows that. I'm doing all of that on Cyclone Fanatic, which I have for almost 15 years.
Yes.
So if you want the Cyclone instant reaction, you can get it at Cyclone Fanatic. Iowa doesn't really have anything like that.
No.
And we saw a hole in the market, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
We go after the weaknesses and
Right away.
We try and exploit them, and
Yeah.
hopefully we benefit because of that, and hopefully the audience benefits. Again, you guys will tell us. I think by the end of the year, this will be one of the most popular shows we have.
Yeah.
Not only because of just the strategic placement of it, you guys are going to hit the on button like the second the game's
Yeah.
over.
Or if it's a blowout, even before that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's as soon as we lose interest in the game.
And then two, the pairing is perfect. You guys are two of my best friends. You guys couldn't be more different Iowa
Couldn't
fans.
be more
and
different.
you both drive me nuts.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Oh, and Hassel drives me nuts.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
The amount of time I spend listening to two guys and like yelling, or like the number of texts I've sent the two of you and then like deleted because it's like I don't want to be that guy. But it's like, man, you need this perspective. What are you talking about, Hassel? Like you're not representing Iowa fans.
So,
But he is. He's just representing a different type of Iowa fan than I am.
It's funny, like me as a fan, I'm very much like I am politically. I'm very in the middle. Like you can't really put me in a box,
Right.
Because it's like I definitely have the side with you,
Yeah.
where I can be the total Cyclone homer. But I also like am at the point in my career. Like I think of this more. Believe it or not, there's gonna be Iowa fans who are gonna mock me. Like I think of it more of like I don't really think of myself as an Iowa State fan.
Right. Yeah.
Which-
No, you're covering the
I
team.
but I want them to win.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I care about a lot of the people up there.
Yep.
But I still feel like, I mean, I've been around long enough where I can criticize
Yeah.
Matt and TJ and all those people where they're not going to Deion Sanders me, and I'm never going to go after them personally.
Right.
Right. Like, we have the same relationship with Iowa. Like,
Yeah.
be professional about it, and it's fine.
But
But
you
I
don't
still
have that emotional pull.
no, but I still want them to win.
Yeah,
like
of course.
it's hard to describe. Like you are this unapologetic Hawkeye homer.
Yeah.
You always see, oh yeah, you guys want to kill Fran McCaffrey. Hey, look, we're in the tournament every other
Right?
year. You know, it could be worse. And then Hassel is
Could be a
just a
lot worse.
total curmudgeon.
Yeah.
He thinks the world is always ending.
Yeah, he can find the negative in every story. Like there have been times this offseason where it's like, how can you look at this thing and see negative? And yet he finds the negative, and all I see is the positive. And that doesn't mean I'm some like rose-colored glasses. Like I understand the reality of it, but I try to look at it as positively as possible. Also, I am like, yeah, I'm a homer. I'm kind of like a pro coach guy. Like I like my guys.
Yeah.
And these are my guys. And so yeah, I'm so excited just to see, it'll be interesting some games. Like if Iowa comes out and looks great against Illinois State and there's not a lot of like controversy to talk about, we'll probably be on the same page in a lot of ways. There are going to be a lot of games this year where and I don't think he and I plan to talk during the game or anything like that.
No, don't do that.
No, so we're gonna come
Ruin it.
on, and it's gonna be like he's gonna say something. We're gonna like have completely different perspectives on the thing we just watched, and have no idea how the other person reached the conclusions that they got to.
Ross and I had that rule. We didn't text during games.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to know. And I tried to not listen to sound off, although when Iowa lost, I'd try because, it's kind of fun. All joking aside.
Yeah.
That'll be an explosive show. And the best part of it is you and Hassel have been friends long enough where you can just tell each other you think you're an idiot.
Yes.
And then there won't be any hard feelings.
Right.
Like it's funny. I had that. Randy Peterson and I have that relationship. We were in Kansas City this year, and John Miller came to hang out with me and RP at a bar. It was before all the Big 12 tournaments. And Peterson and I, like 10 o'clock, were like fighting. And it was something about media, something about like the direction of media.
Right.
Randy was more old school journalist, and I'm like, you got to change your ways, man. And we had some beers, and John Miller, when he saw that Randy Peterson was going to write for us, he's like, man, the last time I saw you guys, you were yelling at each other. I was like, but that's what we do.
Exactly.
And then we give each other a hug.
Yeah.
And I tell him I love him, and I go to bed.
Yeah.
And then the next day we have a Diet Coke together,
Exactly.
And that's you and Hassel are going to be able to do that, which is really the key, because when you do any of these shows, you have to be able to trust the other person.
Yes.
That they're not going to put you in a spot that it won't get personal.
Exactly.
Ever.
Yes.
And once you get past that, that's when a show can be great.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Bloom and I know, Bloom knows what I'm thinking before I say it.
Right.
And Ross and I were definitely like that at the end of 8 years together. You're like that with Keith and Andy.
Yep.
I'm guessing you can see a topic and you just about know
Absolutely.
where they're going to end up on it. But you guys now, you and Hassel are going to have the relationship where you can push each other's buttons, and that's where it's going to be entertaining to the audience.
Exactly. And it's like we both come to it from a love of Hawkeye sports.
Yes.
We're both going to be emotionally impacted.
That pisses me off about when people say that about Hassel. When they're like, oh, he's not a real Iowa. He is an Iowa fanatic.
Oh, absolutely.
He's a bigger Iowa fan probably than most of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
He just goes about it in a totally different way.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's going to be the really interesting thing because, and the way I watch a game is so different than the way he does. And so, it's going to be, I can't wait to just get in there. And the first day where he said something I can't believe. Like, what the hell are you, there's no way you watched the same game that I just watched.
You know what, with me, I've noticed myself, I wonder if our audience feels this way too at all. I'd be anxious to see what you think too, is I'm not there yet. Just with the NIL thing and the professionalization of all this stuff, I've always been much more of a curmudgeon about the Vikings. I'm not about the Braves. I have a ton of I have pride in being a Braves fan. Their organization makes me proud. Like this year, half of their starting lineup is hurt. They've lost a Cy Young contender. They lost the MVP. They've lost their best reliever. They've lost everybody. Austin Riley's out.
Right.
And they're still right there because they have that old St. Louis Cardinals thing, the old Belichick where next man up. It genuinely, I take pride in being a fan of that and that might be really stupid, whatever. The Iowa State thing, it's an emotional thing because I went to school there. You know
a lot of the people.
The people there. I used to walk to class with my wife right there.
Right.
And that is and there's Iowa fans who feel that way about that campus too. I know Iowa State fans like to poke at them.
They do.
There's this emotional attachment to these college teams. With the Vikings, I'm always like, all they've ever done is piss me off and embarrass me. However, I'm noticing myself while I still have those feelings about Iowa State. I still have I love the pep band. I love the nostalgia of. It's funny. I was reading about UConn football today, boning up on that whole thing, and I was thinking about Bobby Diaco and how Jim Zabel used to say his name and listening on 1040 when I was a kid. Right? We have these memories that tie us to this. My first game at Kinnick Stadium, all that stuff. I remember it all like it was yesterday. I will say though, I've really come to hate the process of college sports more.
Yeah.
While my opinion hasn't changed to the people.
Right.
Right? So Jamie Pollard and I think Beth Getz is phenomenal.
Yes.
So while they're a part of the system, I don't dislike them. I've really become to question the system much, much more. And I'm finding myself to be, okay, well, Rocco Becht is making about 10 times more than me. Right? I'm not going to go after him personally, but I do think we are getting to the point where, okay, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. Again, it's not going to change my opinion towards Matt Campbell or Kirk Ferentz. These guys, and by the way, Ferentz being suspended is the funniest, stupidest story I've ever heard in my life. It's literally, it's like your pastor driving by your pastor and he got pulled over for speeding down Main Street. Like, what are you pulling over the pastor for? Everybody's speeding. Why would you pull him over? That's how I look at it.
It's the most ironic thing. Kirk Ferentz serving his first ever suspension for going to get a quarterback.
And you know what's not?
And maybe a quarterback who's not any good.
He's so immune to cheating. He doesn't know how to do it properly.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Of course he got caught.
Right.
He didn't know how to cover his tracks. Do you see where I'm going, though, with the fandom thing? And I just wonder, I think we're just at the infancy stages of that. But it's definitely impacting me because I'm so annoyed by just the system that I've noticed it weighing on my heart a little bit when it comes to this stuff.
And I worry about what that means for like future generations and the future of college sports, because I agree with you completely. Everything surrounding college athletics is a turnoff, and it's harder and harder to care about. It's harder and harder to be emotionally involved in. The off seasons aren't anything like they used to be. It's weird, but when the Hawkeyes swarm out onto the Kinnick Stadium turf, like that thing turns on in me, and I still have that emotional reaction, and I still have this love for it. Like you said, the pep band, all of that kind of stuff. When I hear the On Iowa, all that.
And really the people in general.
Yes, right.
I mean, I'm sure your relationship with your dad.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Lifelong relationships and friendships and just all of the feelings that are wrapped up in that still exists, when the clock starts. I do wonder if that's going to exist for our kids or for kids who are in college right now. Will they still have that emotional connection with these teams the way that we did? I don't know.
The last CW pod I did was a solo one, and I talked about this a little bit. Here's my prediction. I think that the next iteration of college fandom is going to be very much like it was if you were a Kansas City Royals fan growing up. Because we're both going to experience it in this state in different degrees, but we're going to hear about paying the players and the money and all that stuff, which, by the way, both Andrew and I think that players should be paid.
100%. Yes.
Should be paid. We've never been against that.
Right.
When I say the system, it's not that.
No.
It's the bullshit that got us to this point.
Exactly.
This should have been started in 1998. We should not have been waiting until right now. It should just going to be a completely scatterbrain mode. Whatever. That's another show. I think what you're going to get, though, is while I don't think fans are going to rebel against the middle linebacker or the quarterback, if I'm an athletic director, I'm a little bit concerned that I'm going to be, or the GMs of these football programs, Iowa named one.
Yes.
Alabama's paying a guy like $800,000 to be their GM. I was reading about that last week. There's going to be this aspect of it where, there's a lot of basketball fans first. There's a lot of in Iowa City and Iowa State, probably wrestling fans.
Absolutely.
First.
Yeah.
Iowa and Iowa State both have very successful and strong and growing women's basketball programs that people love to support. Well, there's only so many resources, and if you get to a point where the SEC is you have $22 million to spend, they're putting 20 of it into football. And then because this will become public.
Yes.
Oh, Iowa, they are splitting it this way, and football is getting $8 million, and they're going to give Fran McCaffrey this much, and women's basketball, and then they're going to give. They're abiding by Title IX, and these guys aren't. The criticism is going to be ramped up on these administrators and these coaches and these general managers for these business type decisions, and right, how many times it's Major League Baseball is just this is why I said the Royals. You kill the owner.
Yes.
Well, we have money, but you don't spend it.
Exactly.
I'm going to go as an Iowa State fan. Well, you have money.
Right.
Why don't you just cut that program and put it towards the football program? And that's going to start to be a thing.
In pro sports, who do fans hate? They don't hate the players.
They hate the GMs.
Some players, but yeah, exactly. They hate the GMs and they hate the owners. White Sox fans aren't mad that their players suck. They're mad that the ownership group sucks.
Yeah.
Right? They're mad that the GM sucks. And you're exactly right. It's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, $800,000 might be low for a GM of a major college football program.
Talk to me in 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to me
Those
in 5
are going to be and they're going to be the faces of the organization almost as much as the coaches.
They're going to have to
more so.
They're going to have to take questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tyler Barnes.
Yes.
Yes. If I'm Doc and Leistiko and whoever, man, I'd love to have that guy to have a press conference right at the end of the year.
And they're going to have to hold.
Who are you targeting?
Yeah.
What position are you targeting?
What happened with the Caden Proctor thing? Why did you screw this up? How did this, go wrong, whatever that is. You're exactly right. They're going to have to be front and center, the faces of these organizations, like a professional GM is. And that's where a lot of the fans' ire is going to go to. It's not going to go to the quarterback. It's going to go to the GM who couldn't bring in a better quarterback.
That's how I am. Like I always I just go to my Vikings fandom because me as a Vikings fan is the closest thing that I think that where I'm trying to relate to our audience, because it's just true blue, like live and die on Sundays, right? And Kirk Cousins wasn't the problem.
No.
The problem was that you gave him too much fucking money and you couldn't build the rest of the roster around him. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He can't make up for a bad offensive line, right?
Yeah.
And I blame the GM for that.
Yeah.
You know?
As a Bears fan, one of the things that I hate is this cycle of you get a quarterback, you give him a year, and then you fire the coach, and then you have to have that quarterback learn a new coach's system, and then that quarterback doesn't do it quick enough, so you get a new quarterback, and then you fire the coach a year later. And exactly, it's not Justin Fields' fault that he didn't succeed in Chicago. It's the coaches and the GMs.
You put Justin Fields with Andy Reid in Kansas City.
Oh my God!
And have a year to sit like Mahomes did. I think Justin Fields could have been
absolutely
all pro.
Yeah, and we'll see what he does with Mike Tomlin. I mean, I assume he's going to get a lot of chances with Russell Wilson in front of him. But
I'm rooting for Fields.
Caleb Williams,
raw deal.
Caleb Williams feels like a different guy already. Just a couple of games into his preseason career, he feels like a different guy. But if you fire Eberflus after this season or change the GM, or, it's like if the organization isn't solid, he's not going to succeed, regardless of how good he is. The reason Mahomes is so good is partially because Patrick Mahomes is a generational talent. There's no doubt about it. Why is Tom Brady the greatest of all time? It's not just because he's a good quarterback and he worked hard. It's because the organization around him. I mean, we see that with Iowa football. They can have the worst offense in the country, period.
The Sam Brownlee year.
Yeah. I mean, you can have Deacon freaking Hill at
win 9
quarterback
games.
and still win 10. They won 10 games last year with Deacon Hill.
Oh, they did win 10.
They didn't score a point against a ranked team, and they won 10 games. That's organizational.
Yeah.
Like, that's where Kirk Ferentz, he should get the blame for having Deacon Hill as a starting quarterback. He should also get some credit, and this is where Hassel and I differ, because he's more interested in putting the blame on for the bad things, and a part of me is like, well, yeah, that's true. I'll give you that, but they still won 10 damn games with a terrible offense because organizationally they're so well set up.
Maybe the worst offense ever.
Like maybe the worst
real
D1 Power 5. Yeah,
that's not like a triple option. Like that's I mean, they're trying to be like a real. They're not doing anything gimmicky. They were just that bad.
So bad.
It's really hard to
fathom
how bad they were.
It really is.
Yeah.
And not just last year, for a couple of years in a row. And then we'll see how it goes this year. I mean, I know you're not a big Cade McNamara guy. I was saying, it's the irony of Kirk Ferentz serving his first ever suspension for illegally getting a quarterback who might not even start, who might not even be that good.
Yeah.
Shakespeare couldn't write this.
I think McNamara, my fear for him would be that one, obviously the injuries, right?
Yeah,
So that goes without saying. He can't control that. It sucks.
It does.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
My fear for him is that they've ruined him.
Yeah.
And that's not his. It's just being. All I'm saying is I think Iowa, with this new offensive coordinator that seems to have some good ideas.
He does.
We'll see how it plays out, but he seems to have some good ideas. I still look at it, and this is where I'm afraid of for McNamara. It's not him. It's not. I had this position on him before they got Sullivan. He's not going to be mobile at all.
No.
And he can't really take hits now because of all the injuries and stuff. They don't have wide receivers, which Iowa normally doesn't. But where I'm going is if they're going to try and do things differently, if they're doing they have the tight ends, great. I think their running game will be better.
I think so too.
It should, but I'm a believer, Downs, that it's less about the actual offensive line at Iowa. I don't think all of a sudden their line's just shit.
Right.
I don't believe that.
No.
I will reject that every day. I fight with Iowa fans over it's your scheme.
Yeah.
And if we saw this with Iowa State last year, they lost to Ohio, right? They couldn't run for 2 yards. And then all of a sudden they opened up their scheme. What do the kids say? Let Rocco cook.
Yeah, exactly.
They
Looked like a different
spread it
team.
out, and all of a sudden they're running for 350 yards at BYU and in Kansas State and all that. It's like, oh, the line isn't any different, guys.
Right.
Like you've changed the mindset of the defense. You've loosened everything up. My fear for McNamara is that I just don't know how much big play potential that offense has, because it takes a while.
It does.
And I don't know about this coordinator. I just think Sullivan, and I went back and watched him, he's just more mobile. And my prediction with them is they're going to need a shot in the arm because Cade's just not mobile enough. And he doesn't have this cannon. Like, he can't. You see where I'm going with it? That is
I do.
It's not him.
No.
I think Gabe McNamara playing for a lot of offenses will be very serviceable.
Yeah, maybe even like the Iowa offense.
And maybe he'll prove me wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, because like several years ago, the Iowa offense wasn't great. Iowa's offense under Kirk Ferentz has really never been elite. But
plug him in for Nate Stanley.
That's
he's
the
fine.
thing. Exactly. You put him in Nate Stanley's offenses, they're as good, if not better. He's that type of quarterback. That's why he lost his job to J.J. McCarthy, because he's a game manager type of quarterback, which worked well in Harbaugh's offense at Michigan for those couple of years.
5-star talent all over the place.
Exactly. Absolutely. And Iowa does not have that. Now they have some of it. And I think, like you said, the tight ends, I think the running game is going to be better. I think all that's going to open things up. We'll see how these receivers do. But again, until you see it, it's so hard to know. Iowa receivers drop balls left and right. That's so bad.
Frustrating.
It really is. They don't want the quarterback to be mobile, right? They don't want this backyard football. It's going to be really interesting to see how much. I mean, because again, until you actually see it, and really until you see it under adverse circumstances, because I don't know that we're going to learn a lot against Illinois State. Assuming Iowa does well, I don't know that they're going to win by 23 or whatever the spread is. I would doubt it, but I do think they're going to win easily, and so I don't think we're going to see a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how much does Tim Lester actually have at his disposal when the going gets tough. How much is he really able to call the shots? If right now it seems like he is, and it seems like Kirk Ferentz has let go of things and is letting him do, and they're saying all the right things, but they say all the right things every offseason, right? Mm-hmm. That's part of the organizational structure that's so solid at Iowa, is they always say the right things, and by August they sell out the season because everybody's back on board, and then halfway through September everybody's jumping off the bandwagon because it's the same old, right? And you sit there on a Saturday and you're frustrated as hell. But they're saying the right things. So, I mean, maybe halfway through that Iowa State game, if it's a close game, like what do we actually see from this offense? What do we see them allowed to do? Do we see Tim Lester allowed to make changes? If Cade McNamara is good but not great, do they throw Sullivan in there and give him some legitimate first-team important reps? Or are they back to the Kirk Ferentz way of, hey, we have a quarterback? Yeah. Exactly. Do they really lock down when they get a 7-point lead?
Well, they did that with Beathard. It was like they didn't want to put him in to fuel the fans.
Right, exactly.
I swear that's what they did.
For sure. And so, like, does that still exist? Right? Because, and I mean, Jake Rudock was not a bad quarterback. He went to Michigan, had a good season. He got drafted in the NFL.
It all comes down to the power of this Lester, because
exactly. How much
Kirk isn't going to change.
No.
But if he
can let go,
yeah.
And if the people around him have convinced him at this point, like, hey, you're at a point in your career where you can let this part go. And it seems like he's let go of the defense for his entire career, right? He has not been, I mean, I don't think,
as he should, if you look at his
absolutely,
coordinators.
Right? Because he saw he had Norm Parker, and he could just give him the defense and they would be elite. And then he has Phil Parker, and he can give him the defense and they'll be elite. And he doesn't seem to meddle in that too much.
So much like Campbell.
Yes.
Because Campbell's done that. I mean, it's Haycock's defense.
Which is something you and I have talked about for years.
There's so much alike.
The likeness between Campbell and Ferentz.
Yeah, I mean.
And it's why I see Cyclone fans get frustrated in the same ways with Campbell. It's why you see some of the same issues. It's why these one-possession games are just a coin flip, and Iowa seems to win them more often than not, and Iowa State is getting better at that, but tends to lose them.
I swear to God, if Iowa State goes into Iowa City and tries to just run up the middle every effing time, I'm going to freak out.
It's why I think Iowa's going to beat Iowa State this year, because it's like, even if...
My hope as an Iowa State fan for that game is that Matt's still young enough to change.
Yeah.
But he's very stubborn. My hope, because last year he took his hands off the wheel and gave it to Shieldhouse and Taylor Mauser. And you remember that TCU game? All of a sudden they were throwing like 50 times a game.
It was wild.
Yeah.
They changed on a dime.
And Matt has done that a few times in his career.
He has.
They specifically on the defensive end, that comes to mind in 2017 when they introduced the 3-man front. Like they built that in a week, right? Like so that Matt, I give him credit, is he will maneuver, he will move. And my hope is that he saw last year's turnaround and that he doesn't get sucked back into, well, our linemen are all a year older. Like and will he do that is the great question that I have going into this year for them.
I mean, I would bet that he does, right? And because he's so similar to Kirk Ferentz, and I've just seen it over and over again. Like, I don't have faith that.
Well, every year in that Iowa State game, it's the same story.
Also, and for whatever reason, I saw somebody tweet about this or comment. I don't even remember exactly what it was, and I wish I could credit. It was just it was a fan. It was a normal person who tweeted something about this, and it was like, why does Iowa State always need to, like, they go into the season almost like they don't really know, like they have to play a few games. And then they're so good at that adjustment.
They always win in October.
But they can't do the halftime adjustment. They do like a 3-week adjustment.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, that's why September's always so iffy for them and always such an up and down roller coaster. They lose to teams like Louisiana and Ohio because for whatever reason, they don't make that adjustment in the offseason. They have to see it for a few games, and then they're great at making that adjustment.
Couldn't agree more.
And you're exactly right. They win every game in October. They're a tougher team in November than they are in September.
Where Iowa
every year.
In September is just
they're ready to go.
Yeah, it's
because they do the same thing.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because Kirk Ferentz won't make those changes, and so by November they're losing games that they should win because
it's the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. But they know who they are in week 1, and I believe that in that Cyhawk game, we're going to see the same kind of game we've seen the last several years.
I hope you're wrong.
And Iowa generally wins those games.
And it's what's also ironic, I think this is ironic, is that Campbell's the best coach Iowa State's ever had. He's struggled against Iowa. You had these other guys who were great against Iowa,
yeah,
but they weren't very good, like Gene Chizik, right? Like he 1-1, but McCarney was awesome against Iowa, but he started losing record.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
You can't have both. We can't have both.
They would go into that game and they would just do what Iowa didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Well, Iowa State notoriously it's almost like they're trying to prove to Iowa that they can beat them at their own game.
It is.
And I hate that.
To a stubborn extent.
I'm a Mike Leach guy.
That also makes
go
them
after their weaknesses.
That's also made them really successful in Big 12 play because they're different than a lot of those other teams. And Iowa, I know you and Hassel made this point as we move into the new Big 10, and I really think this is something that Iowa needs to consider is that you can't out-recruit Ohio State and USC. You're never going to out-quarterback USC. You're never going to out-skill position Ohio State. The reason Iowa was successful in those games under Ferentz back when they were is because it was such a different thing. And Michigan would have to come in and play this slowed down, run the ball, one possession game where you're up by 2 at the end of the game, and all of a sudden Iowa kicks a field goal to win. And you're like, what the hell just happened?
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's the one time this season that you had to play a team like that.
Yeah.
So you can't spend all year focusing on Iowa. You have 5 days to prep for the Iowa game. If Iowa tries to become these teams, they're going to lose at that game. They can't beat these teams at their game. They can't beat Oregon at the shotgun run, throw the ball down the field all day. They can beat Oregon by slowing the thing down, by beating them up, by playing solid defense, by turning them over, by getting into a muddy game that in the fourth quarter is in question. That's how they've beaten Ohio. I mean, when they beat Ohio State last time, they just kicked their ass, which was crazy. But generally, that's how Iowa has beaten teams that are better, quote unquote, than they are, or certainly more talented than they are.
They would make a huge mistake if they did what Wisconsin's trying to do.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's going to work for Wisconsin. You're never going to recruit the type of players to Madison that you need to, especially in this new Big Ten. Wisconsin might be the 5th best team in the Big Ten every year, running the spread.
Or I would say if Wisconsin wants to have success doing that, they need to go all in.
Yeah.
I watched them last year, and I was so excited being an Air Raid guy.
Nah.
And it sucked. It was like they had no commitment to it.
No, you can't
they had
half-ass
injuries, right? They
for
had
sure.
quarterback
and
go
it was
down.
Fickle's first season, so who knows?
They had injuries, but it was like if you're going to do something, it's like you can't kind of be an option team.
No, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And Air Raid's that way.
Yeah.
It's like if you're going to do it, you got to do it. And that's why I think
so. That's
too,
why I think
Iowa,
Campbell is going to come into Iowa City and play Iowa's type of game,
I
because
hope
they
you're
know
wrong.
that type of game will beat most of the
Well,
Big 12
and
teams they play.
Iowa's defense can psychologically get in your head.
Yes,
too.
they can.
And if you're Iowa State last year's a good example. You got this quarterback that's barely played.
Mhm.
You don't trust your offensive line. You don't know what you got at running back at all at that point. If you think where Iowa State was a year ago after the gambling thing, all these guys are out, Deckers is gone. I could see why last year they're like, we're going to be conservative.
Yeah.
Because we don't trust our
didn't know what you
quarterback
had,
going
right.
against that defense. This year, the recipe to success is for Rocco Beck to throw the ball 50 times in that Cyhawk game.
Yes. The problem is he'll probably throw 3 picks. And
Maybe.
like, can
but that's
you,
the only way they're going to win.
That's
is
the thing,
my point.
exactly.
I'm
So-
out there to win, not
and that's-
keep it close.
That's the thing. That's Kirk Ferentz's biggest flaw has been he's not willing to try those things because of the bad things that can happen, right? It's that old saying, when you throw a ball, only 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad, right? And so Ferentz is like, hey, if I can eliminate the bad,
God, you got to read Leach's book.
Yeah.
Because that gets talked about. There's a whole chapter on that saying.
if I can eliminate the bad and just focus on the things that are not, I mean, it's like I've gone to casinos. I don't like to gamble because the prospect of losing money hurts me more than the prospect of winning
Can't
money.
win if you don't play.
So I'll sit it at like roulette and I'll play where I'm basically betting 2/3 of the board, and I'm never going to win a lot.
No.
But I will win over the course of a couple hours. I'm not going to win a ton. I'm never going to walk out of there with a few $1,000s. I'm never going to have a crowd around me. Put it all on, 25 black or whatever. Like, that's never going to happen, but I'm not going to lose my ass on it. And that's how Kirk Ferentz coaches football. The problem is you also don't get those
But then
big
you have
plays
fans
because
like-
you don't take those chances.
When you have fans like Hassel and a big chunk of your fan base, that it's like the old Vikings Dennis Green thing. Well, we're tired of going 9-7
Right.
every year,
and
being
that's
in the
that's where Iowa fans
wild
have gotten.
card. Well, yeah, like I was 8-4
You
every
remember-
year. You know what they're going to do, but then you get greedy.
Ricky Stanley's senior year, it was pick 6 Rick, right? I mean, he would throw a pick 6 in the first quarter of almost every game, but then he would come back out and he'd throw 3 touchdowns and Iowa would
Kind
come
of
back
like
to
Purdy.
win.
Career,
Yeah,
a little
absolutely.
bit.
Yes, Purdy is a great example. He would make some plays that you couldn't believe they were the greatest plays you ever seen, and then he'd do the
Little
dumbest
Brett Favre.
thing you've ever seen. And Kirk Ferentz hates the dumb things so much and the risk so much. And
They
that's
need
where
a-
it's like, if you're going to go into Iowa City and throw 50 times, yeah, you're going to get sacked. You're going to throw picks. You're probably going to throw a pick 6. Like, can you throw a pick 6 and go back out there and throw the ball again? That's the question. Most teams can't. A lot of teams can't, and they don't. And that's where Iowa gets you in that boa constrictor
Oh, yeah.
and strangles you to death. And all of a sudden you lose by 3 points to a team that you're better than.
And once you're down 2 scores, it's over.
Exactly. And in that stadium, especially the way it's been built now in that north end zone, I mean, you guys talked about that Penn State game, and that quarterback was that ruined that
He
quarterback.
couldn't even get a snap.
That ruined that quarterback.
Yeah.
And Iowa fans and that stadium and that defense has ruined a lot of quarterbacks. So
I think
that's
it's
where Iowa, puts their.
I think they psychologically have gotten ahead of Campbell.
I
over
do
the
too.
years going into that game. Again, my hope for that is because I think Iowa State's going to put the ball in. I think that they're going to be a pass to run offense this year. Over the course of 12 games, I think that's where they end up. I hope it's there on game 1.
Right.
I hope that they don't. I truly believe that. I know Mauser's philosophy. He's more pass first than most of those guys, and I think if they do that, like I think Rocco is an NFL caliber quarterback.
Yeah.
Will he end up? I don't know. He's still young. I think he's an NFL caliber guy. The key will be that line holding up against Iowa in that game. Because I don't think Iowa State will be able to consistently run the ball against Iowa. I'm telling you, I don't believe it to be true.
No blizzard on September 10th or whatever.
No,
it is.
no. So
7th.
go out there and you don't have to throw it 20 yards downfield every time.
Right.
Spread them out. Iowa State's got better skill
And-
position players than Iowa does.
And that's
You know,
the
and utilize that.
Iowa will give you those 7 to 8 yard
Yeah,
plays
take it.
all day long.
And that's what they need to do. They
All
need
day
to go.
long.
And that is really the iteration of the air raid. That's what the air raid is.
Yeah.
It's not. People think it's Michael Crabtree going down the field. No, like it is throw it 60 times and you're dinking and dunking.
Yes.
And then you take your shots when you finally see that defense creep up. The air raid only has like 5 plays.
Yeah.
People think it's just like sophisticated playbook. No, it's backyard football. It is Rocco Beck
Yeah, it's a
and
quarterback who knows.
Jaden Higgins making
Yeah,
eye
who has that
contact, and
connection.
you do the pump, and then he turns and you just do it. Like that is the thing. And
the tough thing about Iowa's defense
I'm
is
already freaking out about Cyhawk week.
they
Thanks.
won't give you that big play. They will almost never creep up. You can dink and dunk on them all day long to the point where it beats them, and they still won't allow you behind them because their philosophy is you can't do that all day. And yeah, you might be able to dink and dunk your way from your 20 to our 30, but can your kicker make that kick? And if not,
don't talk about kickers. What are you doing?
I'm saying though, like that's Iowa's philosophy is like, okay, let's put it on the kicker. Let's put it on the 19-year-old quarterback to never make a bad throw. Because as soon as he makes one, we're going to capitalize on it. Exactly. Most can't. Now, when it happens, like against Michigan State in the 2015 Big Ten championship game, and a team can go for 9 minutes and 25 plays and march down on you and get 4 yards of play.
The one Cyhawk game Iowa State's won under Campbell.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. When you can do that drive they put together at the end there
with Jairo Brock and Hunter Deckers.
Even though there was a non-called, it was like a late hit,
dude,
no call.
But
those are the things. If you cannot get penalized, if you cannot make a mistake like a turnover.
Do you realize
and if you can make a kick, you're going to beat Iowa, but most college quarterbacks can't do that.
That would have been if Iowa State lost that game because of that unsportsmanlike conduct or whatever.
That was wild.
Oh, my God. Like, I don't know if I ever would have recovered from that.
That game was so crazy. Like fumbles on the 1 yard line. That was
I don't know psychologically if I could have recovered from that. Because I was just like the team. I had celebrated the win.
Yeah.
It was over. And then that flag came out, and then all of a sudden Iowa's kicker's trotting out there, and it's like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, man.
I don't know. I honestly, Andrew, I think I may have just shut down Cyclone Fanatic, and I'm gonna go to AKC marketing and sell merch. Like I don't know if I would have recovered from it. That would have been like didn't mean as much. But it would have been, Gary Anderson, 98, like one of those just iconic, like kick to the nuts sports moments. It would have been opposite for y'all.
Yeah.
Hey, one thing.
No, because you're exactly right. I had already moved into, God damn it, we lost this game.
I don't think, is last point I have on Iowa, and then we'll get out of here. I don't think any of us in the media have talked about Cooper DeJean being gone as much as we should. If you look at hidden yardage that he created for Iowa, not just on special teams, but with his defensive play as well. That is the one thing with Iowa that I don't think any of us have truly accounted for.
I think a big part of that is just because Phil Parker has.
You always know that another guy's coming.
Phil Parker has this now. I mean, how many NFL caliber D-backs has Iowa
totally
lost?
Get it.
And then literally it's next man in.
My point is, I think
Cooper DeJean was different. He was.
I think he is different, especially at punt return.
That's the punt return and punt. I mean, because I'm fine. Like Torrey Taylor's not there, and this Reese Dakins is not going to be Torrey Taylor. Certainly not his freshman year. But I think Iowa will still have a good punting game. But will anybody be able to get down there and down the ball at the one as consistently as DeJean did? Those hidden yards, like you said, even when you just get 15 yards for an offense that couldn't move the ball. Getting out of your own end zone.
Well, you're not winning 10 games without him on the punt team.
There's no question.
That's and I know he got hurt.
And he should have won 11 with him on the punt team. That damn Minnesota game.
The one absolute travesty of his injury is I just would have loved to see him play quarterback.
Yeah.
I wanted it so. I was calling for that 2 years ago when Petrus was still there, by the way.
And you wonder, like,
I was calling for that then.
If he had known that he was not going to be a first-round draft pick, would he have stayed? Now, I don't think he should have. He's going to make a lot of money. I think he's going to be a good NFL player. But if you had told him, hey, I have a crystal ball, and you're not going first round, you're going second round.
I think
and he knew everybody was coming back that's coming back. I mean, this defense, to have this defense come back the way they are, to have Jay Higgins.
Yeah, it's sick. Could I make the argument, and you tell me if this is insane? I don't think it is. I could make the argument. I'm not claiming this as fact. Top 5 player in Kirk Ferentz' tenure.
There's a reason that the coaches called him the Niall Kinnick of like the modern Niall Kinnick. I don't think we even saw all of the athleticism that he showed all the time. I mean, and for a cornerback, it's one of the reasons corner is my favorite position on the field. It's because you don't notice most of the good plays they make. You don't notice the times he's not thrown.
We saw that last year at TJ Tampa.
I mean, you saw
Never got picks because they didn't throw at him.
Yeah, they don't throw at him. Desmond King was the Thorpe Award winner his junior year, was almost nothing his senior year because nobody threw at him. And so you're exactly right. I think, especially if he had come back, it's going to be weird to see the Cooper DeJean. I think the Minnesota play will like live forever in lore, but like it doesn't count, right? Like that's not a game winning. Now he won the Michigan State game, but like
I would love for somebody to do some sort of, and I'm not the guy to do it, some sort of analytical deep dive on hidden yards in Cooper DeJean's career.
Yeah.
Just across I just think that guy was so special. And I don't believe, like, that's the thing with, like, great TJ Tampa, because we're talking about corners. TJ Tampa didn't do much on special teams. Totally different type.
Right.
But, like, I don't think you can replace that. If you're like an Iowa State fan, you're like, yeah, I like the corners. Yeah, but this is like a once-in-a-generation guy for you.
Yeah.
Like, he's really, really, really good.
Yes.
They don't grow on trees.
Right.
What I'm saying is in the punt game specifically, less so at corner because of the points that you've made. I just think that guy is irreplaceable.
I think you're right. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they fare without him and now hopefully the punting game isn't Iowa's best offense this year. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully there's not so much put on.
And that's why you can't be the worst offense.
Exactly.
Be the 100th.
Exactly.
As we've been saying for years.
Exactly.
Be the 100th, and then the special teams doesn't. You don't have to have a punter kicking 80 yards.
Exactly.
Doing all that.
You're not counting on that.
I'm a huge fan of DeJean. I said this. Really, I think the second time I saw him, I go, that's my favorite Hawk since Tim Dwight, and
he was incredible.
Iowa kid, like just. I love the western
freak.
side of the state. You know, I remember seeing his highlights because he played.
His basketball highlights are crazy. His high school basketball highlights.
I mean, listen, I'm not being a down. All I'm saying is we've been spending so much time on the stupid quarterback situation.
Yes. I think you're right. That has not been a topic.
We talk about the new OC. We talked about the new punter.
We almost don't even mention that Iowa's best player in a generation is no longer there.
I think he's a top 5, maybe not best. I don't know how you would want to define that.
That's
most
the hard
valuable
thing. Right.
Hawkeye in Ferentz's tenure. He is in the conversation to be in the top 5,
especially for when he was there. I mean, for the yards he
and I would also point out
saved.
Being a leader on the defense when the offense is that bad.
Yes,
for 2 years.
Yes,
like do you know how hard
because it doesn't seem like there was any cracks. Like it really doesn't seem like the defense resented the offense.
Because all the media we're going to him.
Yeah, and again, it's back to that organizational thing that Kirk Ferentz has built over 25 years there, where somehow having the worst offense in the country didn't deter the defense. It almost bowed them up more. It was like, all right, then we have to be the best offense or the best defense. It's the only way. We have the worst offense. We have to have the number 1 defense. It's the only way we're going to win 10 games. And they went out there and they did it. They never said anything. You never got a hint. I'm sure in their heads, I'm sure in their meetings, I'm sure in their dorm rooms, they were talking shit about the offense. They had to have been.
Fly on that defensive meeting room's wall.
And I'm sure the coaches were too. Hey, you guys had another great game. Sorry the offense couldn't pick you up. But they also wore that as a badge of honor. They were proud of the fact that, hey, yeah, we had the worst offense.
The only football team in the history of the sport, where you can call the punter the most valuable player time and time again, and it's correct so many times.
In several of their wins. He was the most valuable player.
It was him and it was Coop because, I mean, you think about how many times, like pick sixes, how many pick sixes did he have?
Oh, man.
I mean, there's a time where it was like we were making the joke, well, need to get the defense out there. Maybe they'll throw it and DeJean can get one.
Yeah, exactly. He was Iowa's most effective receiver.
Such a ball hawk. And I also wonder.
And as soon as the ball got into his hands, he was always going to do something special with it.
Hassel mocks me for this, and I'm sure you do too. But like, it all like there is a median somewhere.
There's not.
That guy was different. I'm telling you,
he was.
The turnover thing has to even out. It doesn't. It kind of evened out last year though, because the offense,
a little bit. Yeah.
Deacon would just throw the jump balls.
With the offense gave away so many. balls.
So it kind of has already done that.
I know you've said this for years though, and it just hasn't come back to the mean.
I know
it hasn't regressed.
Well, nobody agrees with me. I'm on an island.
The numbers don't agree with you.
I have fought with Matt Campbell about this, like in private. Like we'll fight about it, and he's like, "No, that doesn't matter. It's all about the players making plays, and that's how you should look at it."
Right.
I don't believe it. I'm also the type. It's like if anything that's great sucks for a while, like the stock market, okay? Like, okay, there was an example like last year where Target stock was like at a 10-year low and everybody's just shitting all over the company. It was when they were in the politics. I bought a bunch of it. I didn't know anything about it, but I'm like, well, it can't stay like that forever.
It's gonna go up.
Like, I go to Target.
That's the thing.
Every freaking time I go there, there's just middle-aged women everywhere, and they're just running up their credit cards.
For most things, you're right. For most things, you're right. That's why your theory on this is solid. I
For
understand
most football
why.
teams, it's right.
Absolutely. It's just not right for the Iowa defense.
Because they are ball hawks every
They
year.
are. They are.
You're. I have been wrong
Yes.
every year. I've had the same prediction for 10 years since I've been commentating on Iowa,
Like, oh, this
and
is the year
I've been
they don't
wrong
get any
every year.
turnovers.
And I admit it. It's some year I will be right,
Yeah.
and you better have the
It'll be
100th
after
best offense.
It'll be after Phil Parker retires.
He's great. Just great. I love. You said corner's your favorite. It's funny.
Yeah.
I've grown to just love the D line. I love watching the D
Yeah.
line. I love watching it at Iowa State, specifically when they get with the 3-down linemen. Because when you've got a nose tackle that can disrupt, it just. And they haven't had that. You know, Orange is really good, but they haven't been able to get that pressure, and I think that's biggest reason why they're going to the 4-man. And I think they got a really good line, but I love watching the D line though. It's funny because the corners are such a big deal with your defense.
Yeah.
If you can lock that down.
Absolutely.
And the D-line is imperative for Iowa State. Like, if you have a good D-line, your defense is going to be elite. Nothing else matters.
Yep.
And it hasn't been since really Will McDonald left. And now they're going to make some changes. So, to me, probably going to be watching that pretty closely.
I love corner is just such a it's a small guy.
It's a thankless.
It's thankless.
Yeah.
And you're out there
It's
on
a
an
lot like a
island.
kicker and a punter,
You have to have a short memory, but you have to have ego. I've always loved guys with ego. I don't like the way Dion is handling things now, but I loved Dion as a player, of course, right? Like Desmond King and Josh Jackson and like those guys. Cooper DeJean, these guys who wear it like a badge of like.
I was the same way, dude.
And then you have to have such a short memory. You have to Ted Lasso, be a goldfish, right? You have to give up a big play and then get right back out there against that same wideout who's now taller and faster and stronger, and all the rules are in his favor.
And you're talking shit usually.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. And you have to be able to talk shit after he gets a 40-yard gain on you. Yeah. And you have to get right back up and get right into his face and bump and run him. And like that, the mindset a corner has to have. And then like I think a pick six is the coolest play in football.
It's awesome.
It's just, I mean, the momentum shift, the points, all of it. It's so cool. That's why corner is my favorite position.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, I'm glad you didn't say punter.
No,
Would've
we'll
been
see.
very-
We'll see how Reese does.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you're on the team.
Man, I can't thank you enough
gonna
for
be
like.
awesome.
I'm so excited to be back on to be on the team, to be back with Murph and Andy, to be a part of this. Like it's surreal for me to be a part of this. I'm so excited for what the future holds. We're building something really, really cool. Like just to now like have a little bit of ownership in it, and seeing like the tweets come out like today about the Ben Bruns thing. It's like, again, I listen to that show every Sunday because it's a different perspective on a team that I don't cheer for but do care about. The Randy Peterson stuff. I saw people tweeting at me today about like, oh, what about John Miller? It's like, hey, John Miller's going to be a part of this. Like, this is, as you said, like and it's fun to watch you and the emotion of like bringing us all back together and like.
Oh, I've been a blubbery mess.
People who have treated you well and done you right throughout your career, you're now returning those favors, even though you don't owe me anything. But like
I owe you more than you're giving yourself.
But I'm just
credit.
saying, it's like it's so cool. Like the way and to be working with you again is so much fun. I can't. I've never done a show with Hassel.
That's gonna be awesome.
That's gonna be so much fun.
I hope, just for the sake of everybody, I hope Iowa wins on Saturday in a close game.
Yeah, right.
Where
the offense doesn't look like McNamara doesn't look good, and Sullivan doesn't.
And I'm
going to
be in the Iowa State press box just clicking away.
And I'll be like, "Hey, Cade. I mean, yeah, he didn't
Hassel's
play great, but
there, one of my favorites.
Like, I can't believe Sullivan didn't play."
We had just launched this thing. And 2 weeks later, Iowa had the 6-3 win or 5-3 win, whatever it was, over South Dakota State.
Yeah.
And we flipped it on.
I think it was 10-7.
Well, okay, whatever it was.
7-3 with two safeties and a field goal.
That's what it was.
Yeah, because it was 5-3.
Two safeties.
For the longest time. And Hassel he wasn't calling a game that week. So we just flipped it on and he went live. And watching him that glazed look in his eyes.
Yes.
Like he was. It'll be a great show.
I'm excited.
And then, yeah, you mentioned John. I don't think this has been announced. It doesn't matter. We've had so many announcements, like people will find it. But John's he didn't want to be locked into like having to record right
the
after
Saturday
Iowa
thing
games.
is just
it doesn't work for everybody. And John's beyond that point in his life.
He's done that for so long.
Yeah.
He did that for so many years.
I'll be like that at some point.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I've done post game and instant forever, and then I do the Learfield one,
right?
And like, which I am still doing. I've had a lot of people ask me about that because of Jack's situation. I will be there. So John's going to write columns on the Hawkeyes in the Big Ten, which I think is a great addition.
Yes.
Because he's a really good writer.
He is.
And then we will do our Miller and Williams. We're not going to do it weekly because we don't want to set the expectation and then let you guys down because he's super busy. He owns companies. He's out there traveling all the time. But like when we have stuff that we want to get to, we're not even going to sell a sponsorship.
That's again one of the.
We want to do it when we want to do it.
One of the cool things about what you've built here and kind of the way, like I said earlier, you can kind of throw things out there. When John feels passionate about something, it's when he's at his best.
Oh, yeah.
And he won't go on unless he feels passionate about something. And if he does, he'll call you up and you guys will do a podcast. Or, it's like when he has something to say, when he has like and then has a platform to voice it, like that's when he's at its absolute best. When he has to do a 2-hour radio show by himself, like he used to do on KXNO back in the day, like that's such a slog.
In the middle of June.
Exactly. But now it's like if he doesn't have to come up with something to say every week, but when something clicks with him, it's like, hey, I need a place to get this off my chest. We're that place for him, and I love that.
Well, we're just trying to put people in the best spot.
Yes, sir.
He is Andrew Downs. Go out and buy yourself a bottle of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. I prefer the black label. That is my favorite. People ask me all the time, if you can get some of this sweet mash rye, the green label, I would highly encourage it. It's kind of rare. So if you find a bottle of that, go ahead and grab it. We will be out in Grand Junction. Trying to think of all the different places because we have RVTV next week too. We'll be in Grand Junction. If you're one of the great channel seedsmen out there, come say hi. Thanks so much, Aiden Wyatt, for producing. We'll be back next week. I think we're going to do a show from Kelderman Manufacturing down in Oskaloosa next week for the Cyhawk game. He's Andrew Downs. I'm Chris Williams. So long, everybody.